All right, as we go out to the guest line here, all guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 are brought to us by Johnny Cuba, a refreshing German lager in a can, European roots with a Caribbean soul. Go pick up a six-pack right now. You got your holiday specials out there, Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie. Go pick up yourself a six-pack of Johnny Cuba and stay tranquilo. Our pal is ESPN's Israel Gutierrez. Joining us here, you're looking tranquilo. You look very good.
Tranquilo, man. Tranquilo.
You know, this has been one of my favorite parts of doing ZASLOW Show 2.0, where, I mean, listen, you're a good friend of mine, so we have good conversations anyway, but I've noticed, and listeners too, they've pointed this out, like, yo, ZASLOW, the guests you've been having on, so good. It's been fire. And I'm like, yeah, I'm learning it's so much easier talking to people when you can see them, as opposed to doing it on the phone for the last 18 years. The conversations, the interview spots are so much more enjoyable like this.
Yeah, I wasn't listening to anything you were saying. I was just trying to find myself in the pictures behind you. I know I'm in that Christmas
behind me right there is
that
very famous holiday photo where we're all in the ugly sweaters.
Yeah, that one of my favorites. I can't lie. But I think my favorite one was we were in there with what's the champ's name? I totally forgot.
Shannon Briggs.
Yeah, with Shannon Briggs. That was the best picture because never before have I felt so tiny in my life. And I used to feel good about myself going into your studios, and then I was like, Shannon Briggs, you need to get out of here.
Yep, we had the championship belts. He comes in shirtless, he leaves shirtless. That was a fun day, man. When we first met, Let's Go Champ Shannon Briggs. That was a fun day. So glad to have you here with us, man. And we'll talk some Heat, and I do want to do a little bit of Dolphins with you because you grew up a Dolphins fan, so you're probably experiencing this season very similar to the way I'm experiencing this season. But first up, man, that soccer yesterday, that was the good shit. Ooh. How good was that? It was so good. How good was the soccer yesterday?
It was good, right? And then, so the last, I don't know, let's say the last 10 minutes and then, 10 minutes of stoppage time, which was absolutely ridiculous. It was 9 minutes.
Oh, my God. Well, how about when they announced, I just saw the card, they're putting 9 more minutes. I'm like, oh, my God.
There was like the Sargent injury, and there was like 2 set pieces, maybe one other injury. There was not 9 minutes of stoppage time. That was absolutely ridiculous.
So much stoppage time.
But it's funny because it's such an interesting watch because you're like geeked, right? It's like the tension rises as the clock goes up. And it doesn't matter what the situation is. Like if they had been scoreless, you're like, oh shit, we need a goal. And you would have been, pissing yourself. And the way it ends up is they're only up the 1 goal and a draw knocks them out. And you're just like, oh no, what's going to happen here? And so those last 10 minutes was just life or death. And I don't think there's any sport you can watch that you experience like that. Because if they would have scored Iran with, let's say, 5 minutes into stoppage time, like talk about the gut punch. And then you just have to live with it for like the next 4 minutes while the U.S. So anyway,
live with it for the next 4 years.
Well, 4 minutes as they panic and try to score, and then the next 4 years. And so that would have been just such a gut punch. So in the end, it wasn't so much like exalted, like super. I was just relieved. I was like, whew, now let me finish this television show, because we were sitting there watching it for Around the Horn, and we had to, obviously have our opinions all put together and buttoned up, but it's like it was emotional at the time. So it was great, man. It was great. And like I just love I know a lot of people do this, they sort of wait till the World Cup to learn a lot of these US players, and they're getting to know that a lot of these guys are really good. And so it was a lot of fun. That was like probably the most tense sporting event I've watched since maybe Heat finals with the Spurs, probably.
Now, I mean, every game going forward now is going to feel this way, but yesterday, that was the biggest soccer match in U.S. men's soccer history, right?
You felt that way? I guess because you expected to get through, because I don't know, like I wouldn't have been shocked if they didn't get through this group. And
but expectation-wise, I feel like,
I felt like they're 1 World Cup early. Like I think, next World Cup they're definitely supposed to get through. They're probably supposed to, goal to maybe be a semifinalist. I think right now, I think they're good just getting through. I think it would have been slightly disappointing not getting through because of the draw with England and because of how well they played. But they've been so sort of inconsistent under Berhalter that I wouldn't have been shocked if they looked like trash against Iran, but they didn't. And so I think where you're confident is like there is some consistency here. And like the Dutch, I mean, statistically, like rankings wise, not as good as England. Top to bottom, talent wise, not as good as England. Not as good as England. They're a really great national team. They have a really good chemistry, but I mean, U.S. could beat them if they drew with England. They could at least get to some PKs with the Dutch.
Have you always? Yeah, that's something that should be pointed out. We're now going into the knockout round. All right, now we're in like the pressure cooker. Now we're gonna play overtime sessions and then go to PKs if you don't have a winner by the end of those 30 minutes. Have you always been a soccer fan?
No, I mean, I've always been like a U.S. national fan, dating back to those terrible jerseys that Alexi Lalas used to play in, but never really sharp on international soccer. Last, I would say, it's funny, I'd say like 4 years, because that was pretty disappointing when they didn't make the World Cup 4 years ago. But since then, I've just kind of like locked in on being a Chelsea fan because of Pulisic, and just kind of just really became a big Premier League fan, and just kind of keep my eye on other leagues around the world.
It's such a great game, and I've talked about this. I talked about this today, where, I mean, growing up, you couldn't get me to watch a soccer match. I mean, this is the most boring shit. I will never watch soccer, and part of it has to do with my son plays travel soccer, so I'm really into it in that regard. But also, I'd say really like the last 10, 12 years. Once the best way that I would explain it is, once you understand the game, like once you understand what you're watching, it's such an awesome sport.
To me, it wasn't even so much about understanding it. Like, I just think the quality of has just gotten better and better.
Yeah.
And so, I think you look at, not even like MLS. I think you look at like a Premier League, like I said, like they've always been the elite league, I would say, or an elite league, but just watching, you can just tell the quality. I don't know what it is. I watch these games, and it's entertaining, and it's also like football fools you with the big numbers, but like one score is 6 points. Like over here, one score is 1 point, and so a 21-14 game is nothing but a 3-2 game. That's all it is. And so it's the same thing with soccer. So if you don't get you get caught up in like the actual scoring, like there's so many scoring chances. There's so many, to make a football analogy, there's like a ton of goal line plays, right? They just don't actually cross the goal line as often. And so the buildup could be, out of nowhere. So I think it gets a bad rap. But I think we're well past here in the States, soccer being an afterthought. I think it's in everybody's mind here to stay for sure.
I think part of also what made it slow for me to get on board with soccer when I was younger, in this country, all of our sports, we have the best league. We have the best hockey league in the world. We have the best baseball league in the world. Obviously, it's American football. We have the best basketball league in the world. But we have never had, and still don't have, the best soccer league in the world. The best soccer is taking place overseas. And we're not used to not having the best sport, the best players, the best athletes. And I think at least that was probably like that for me. I think it's probably been like that for a lot of Americans, to be able to gravitate towards soccer when we don't have the best league or the best players. It's the only sport you could say that about.
Yeah, it's funny because I was watching, as on the internet, I forget where it was, but I think it was Bleacher Report had an image, and it was obviously doctored, but an image of a team posing for a soccer photo, and it was pretty much all of America's best athletes. It was like, LeBron was on there, Steph was on there, name
all guys who would be terrible at soccer.
Lamar Jackson, right? They'd be using their hands all the time. But it just kind of gives you like an idea, like, oh wow, like, and in other countries, it's like it's the number one choice by far, and so it wouldn't have even been it wouldn't even been a question if whoever it may be here in the States would have followed soccer or tried to go into soccer. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the case. But again, you don't have to be like a U.S. league or a national team for you to find something to latch onto and like that team. Like you can get rid of the national stuff and just go watch English football and see, or Italian football or Spanish football, and see if it interests you, and like find some sort of like, again, with me, it was just Pulisic. Like that was the connection. And then I learned about all the other players and sort of went from there. And so I think it doesn't have to be a US league. You could still sort of awe at, some Irish great who ended up playing soccer.
What do you make of the political stuff like a couple days ago when you have the Iranian media who is chastising Tyler Adams on how to pronounce the name of their country?
And not like the way you just pronounced it.
Well, I mean, I'm going to still pronounce it like that. All right.
Okay.
All right. And they're asking the coach why he hasn't called Joe Biden and asked him to remove naval ships, and asking Tyler Adams about playing for a country that doesn't accept Black people within its own borders. Tyler Adams, by the way, to his credit, I mean, could not have handled it any better.
Well, let me pause right there, because he couldn't have handled it better. But his answer was BS, because he was saying, as long as there's progress. Are you seeing progress these days? I'm seeing the opposite. So I think we're regressing a little bit. Well,
what do you make of that stuff where, I mean, just posing those type of questions to a kid who's there to play soccer and a guy who's there to coach soccer?
This is the danger of sort of what we've been doing forever and slowly sort of creeping up on us the way it has been, I don't know, in Russia or other places, like making sport way too important and making it part of our identity, our national identity. And then you start intertwining or mixing those issues. And all of a sudden you can't avoid it. Like I've talked to you about this. Like it drives me nuts that I've got to get ready for a show and I've got to talk about all kinds of things I did not go to school for. You know what I'm saying? Like I have to just learn on it, be an expert on it, and then just, present to the sports national media or fans or whatever viewing audience. And it's just like, it drives me crazy that I have to do these things. I don't want to talk about all these subjects. But they're unavoidable. Like sports is just a part of life, and life is pretty crazy right now. And so, I think that's just kind of the danger of mixing those things, or sort of elevating sport to this level of importance, especially with your country, et cetera. And so I just think, especially internationally, media members are just holding the U.S. to the fire and just being like, all right, if you guys want to be this judgmental group from afar, then we're going to hold you to the standard that you hold, supposedly everybody else to. And so, and then it just becomes whataboutism left and right. And that's pretty much where we're at with everything in the world. Like you can't tell any country, any person, any group, anybody that what they're doing is wrong, because they'll just find something that you're doing that's wrong, or something that you're attached to that's wrong. And it's just like the world is just going to spin in that, evil cycle. And I hate that. I hate it. Like it's okay for somebody to start the process of improving yourself, or improving your, whatever group you're in, or improving your political party, or improving your country. Like it's okay to start that process. It doesn't have to be somebody else doing it first. You can be the bigger person. And so I think that's just where this is all at. And we all have to be prepared to answer these questions. We all have to be prepared for, the Kyrie Irvings of the world, who are just going to throw all this junk at you and just be like, hey, deal with it, because I'm a sports star and you have to deal with everything that comes with me. And it's just like, it's a lot. And I think the only thing to advise, I would say, is the athletes and coaches, is just be prepared for the questions. Maybe, unfortunately, it is just the way we are in the world. Do a little research, maybe have a really good answer. You know what I mean? But it's unavoidable these days. And it's just going to get uglier if there's more confrontation, which is why I'm thankful that Tyler Adams answered the way he did. But you're going to get a lot more of these, I would say, on these world types of stages, and you're going to have some either canned answers or really good answers.
You're right about the whataboutism, because the first thing that I'm screaming about when I hear that question to Tyler Adams a couple of days ago, where it's like, hey, how about you treat gay people and women a little bit better in your country? Like that's the first thing that I wanted to throw back in their face,
And it's conflating things too, right? Because you're not talking about the same issues. Obviously in the States, we're talking about, racial inequality, and we're talking about social justice. We're talking about something that's been, baked in our country for forever. And so we're trying to work our way out of it. I would say, over the last 20 years, I'd say most of the country is surprised by how racist we still are, right? I think because it just kind of came out all in the wash, and we're just kind of dealing with what we've got now, sort of a surprise. I wouldn't even call it a faction. It's just an entitled large group of people who are just, showing who they are. And I think, I think we're working as a country to break through whatever those entities are, wherever those, whether it be police or what have you, we're trying to fix those. And so at least I think we are. It's probably going to take 50, 60 years, but I think we're trying to make progress. And I think that's where Captain Tyler Adams should have said, as long as we are working toward progress. And I think in the States, we can probably say that we still are, most of us. And so I think that's probably where we're going to have to go with it. And because I think most of these athletes are just ill-equipped for these types of conversations, because who would be unless you actually prepare for these things?
How have you experienced, you grew up down here, a Miami Dolphin fan, just like myself, but also, Miami Dolphin fan like myself, who, while you haven't stopped being a fan, the emotion in the fandom has waned drastically over the last, quarter century, probably. How have you experienced this season as a Dolphin fan?
So I would say basically when Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas retired, were probably when my fandom just kind of was like, for the Dolphins, I was like, I don't know what's left. Like, I don't really have the energy to cheer for these new people if I don't think they're going to do any good. And so it's just like, I was just very neutral when it came to the Dolphins. In fact, they didn't give you much to cheer about. Like, It's not like you could go out and brag about, huge wins or whatever. So when they got Tyreek, it was very much like, just don't screw this up, right? Don't let him get hurt. Like, that was my first thing. He's probably going to get hurt, and it's, maybe he'll lose a step and he won't be the same guy. But when you watch all these things come together, and I can't really give ownership very much credit because it all kind of happened by accident, because they tried a different plan, a sinister plan, and it didn't work. But if it happened by accident, great. I'm happy about it. I love the receivers. I love Tua and I love him the way like Mike McDaniel does. Like, I don't know if you saw this recent clip of him like sort of walking away and complimenting Tua as he was walking away, even though some people say, this is what you do. You compliment him when he can't hear it. That's how you really know he loves him, but he knew he was mic'd up. So, I think it's kind of like, it's a little like the Dwayne Wade thing in the sense that when he came on, you kind of knew immediately he was going to be a star. And it's like, wow, he has something really special here. And it's like, oh, wow, a really good player and obviously a great organization and, good coach and Riles. And so you were just like feeling good about what was to come. So that's why this feels so different. And it's not just like, wow, this year has been surprisingly great. It's like, wow, there's something here. And I don't know how long these NFL, windows stay open. It might only be 3 or 4 years with this group, but that's going to feel like a long time if it's 3 or 4 years of like sustained success. And every single year you're thinking, oh, wow, we might make the Super Bowl this year. Because right now, like, I've never felt this before, but every time they go out in the field, I feel like they're gonna score. I feel like every play might be a 25-yarder, and I love that. And I don't know how many teams I've watched that I could say the same thing about. Maybe Kansas City. And so I think it's awesome. I don't think I've ever felt this way, to be honest. Like, because when I was young enough to really, when Dan Marino was that good, I didn't appreciate the game nearly as much, or what I was getting. So this has probably been this year has been probably the best year I've experienced as a Dolphins fan. Wow, I never talked that out.
Best
year.
You say how, like, in a nefarious way, they tried to replace him. We can understand trying to get Tom Brady, and obviously it would have been cool, but how much better is it when it's your guy who you're having the success with? Like, they would have been renting a Lamborghini with Brady, but Tua's their guy.
How'd you feel with LeBron? Because
it
didn't have to be one or the other. It was both of them, right?
It's very similar to that, but at least we still had Wade. You still had Wade on the team,
Right. So that's kind of what this is like with Tyreek, and you still have Tua.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or somehow you'd have been able to make it work where you have Tua, but you also have Brady, and he's helping the team win, which of course is not possible in football.
Right.
But it's so much better when it's your guy that's leading you.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, even with Dwayne, like, when you see that young talent coming up and you're just like, oh man, this is going to be me or my team for a long time. And like, so the combination of feelings is really good. And with Tua, there's also the sort of, I told you so type of thing for a lot of people. And I know it's like, it gets really deep online, but I was one of those who, there's not really public receipts, but if a few people busted out their text messages and showed what I text them, right when Tua initially took over for Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think it was, I was all in on him. Like, I thought the arm strength was there. I thought the decision making was there based on what I'd already seen in college.
I told you so guy also. I've loved Tua since day one.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that sort of adds to it. If he continues to sort of thrive and be like a top 10, top 5 QB by the time he hits his, prime, I think that's going to sort of make it feel even better.
The Dolphin fan hates Mina Kimes.
That's so strange, man, because we all have like so many sports opinions over the years, and like she's got no connection to Miami, obviously. And like I've said the weirdest stuff, like I didn't think James Harden was going to be any good when he got traded to Houston. It's like Houston Rockets fans weren't attacking me then. Like I don't get that. And I don't know if it's like a homegrown thing. Maybe that is it, because it's like, that's your guy.
Yeah.
But man, like it's a bit much. And like
they hate her.
Of all the people, but here's the thing, like of all the people to have a poor opinion on, like she really does her work, like really watches stuff. But also, like, what's the point? Like, why are you that worked up? Like, people are going to be wrong all the time. And so if you just like, it's not like she's digging in and saying, oh yeah, he's going to still be bad, just watch. It's like, you can just, why don't you just be freezing cold takes?
I don't think it's about her or anyone else being wrong about Tua. Mm-hmm. I think it's about being wrong about Tua and the treatment of Tua compared to others, specifically guys like Justin Herbert.
What treatment? Saying he doesn't have it? Like, people say that about guys all the time. It's just a wrong opinion. But what's the treatment? Like, what? I'm honestly, genuinely asking, because I don't know. Was there something over the top that people did to him?
I think it's the treatment. Like, I made the joke, although I was serious a couple of weeks ago when, what was it, Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football, and Herbert had the bad finish, threw an interception to end the game, and. No. You know what I made the point? It was with Zach Wilson, and I was dead serious. It was with that game with Zach Wilson 2 weeks ago where he was like 9 for 22 for 77 yards in year number 2. Last year number 2 for Tua. And if Tua had that game last year, he'd have been thrown out of the NFL.
I didn't think there were that many eyes on the Dolphins. Like, I didn't think there were that many opinions. I think it might have been like really the battle locally, and then those questions were asked nationally because it was all there could be to talk about down here, right? I mean, they're not going to sit there and talk about, oh, this defense is really good and Brian Flores really knows when to play that cover zero. No, they're going to talk about the quarterback, and they're going to talk about whether he's the right guy or not. And so I don't know, like, I do think that, people fall in love with the guys that have all the tools. And I mean, I don't know what people fell in love with Zach Wilson. I mean, maybe he flipped the hell out of his hips in that one workout, but I just don't get it. And so I'm with you there. Like, it did seem like maybe people were wanting to sort of rule out Tua, but those who didn't know anything about football would watch, and he'd be terrible because the offensive line would not hold up, or because his receivers would get zero separation. And so they're just like, oh yeah, do away with that guy. And so it's just a premature football opinion. I don't think it's so much treatment of Tua. Like, I'd be more, I don't know, concerned about or upset at those who told him to stop playing after the concussions. Like, yeah, if it was me, I would stop playing, but you don't have to tell that dude what to do. Like, he can take all the risks he wants. Mm-hmm. And so those are the ones I'd be more upset with, trying to tell the guy what to do, as opposed to just somebody who had an incorrect sports opinion.
What are you watching these days, or have you finished all of Netflix?
No. I actually trying to let a couple things build up a little bit. White Lotus is great so far anyway. You'd have to have one of those backup shows, right? One where if there's nothing really on, you can just go back to it whenever you want. And right now, that show is The Americans.
Hulu,
it's I think I'm watching
great.
It. So I'm only on season 2, so I've got a lot to go. I think it only gets better.
What a show! Good for it's like 6 or 7 seasons. What a show! I'm jealous of you, man. My wife and I watched The Americans a few years ago, and it's one of the few shows that it ends really well. Top finale.
All right. No, say no more.
Finale. Yeah.
Acapulco
that's
on
great
Apple TV
show.
Plus is another show.
What is it?
You ever watch that? Acapulco on Apple TV Plus?
No.
It's a cute little show. It's a little flashback show from There's a couple of kids who work at this fancy Mexican hotel, and just kind of goes from there.
I'm
Pretty
jealous that you're watching the Americans for the first time. Good for you,
cool.
man. Me and my boys, we just finished watching Wednesday on Netflix.
I've heard it was good. My niece, my 18-year-old niece, just recommended it.
It is fantastic. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. 8 episodes. You're in, you're out. It is.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, like I think there's going to be a season 2, but 8 episodes, an hour each. You're in, you're out. It is a fantastic show. Really cool.
Okay, I will definitely watch then.
Good job.
We're not getting
man.
into Heat. Are we not getting into any Heat talk? What's going on?
Well,
where are we?
I'll leave you here.
Is this the ZASLOW show?
I'll leave you here with a little bit of heat. We got the Celtics tonight. I feel like we're going to get smacked. The Celtics seem like they're by far and away the best team in the NBA right now. Are the Heat in big trouble, dude? Not just tonight. Like, are we in trouble?
What is the deal with Jimmy Butler? Like, I don't know. This guy has the most private injuries. Did you?
Yeah, that's a Heat thing,
he
though.
Was hurt?
Yeah, but that's a Heat thing, though. The privacy with the injuries, though, man.
I get it, but it's hard to assess. Like, I would love to figure out what his injury is and whether he's going to come back, hit the ground running, or whether he's going to need some time. It all just is a bit of a shocker. I think they I don't know, he might be doing them a favor, because Caleb Martin, without him in there, is just really showing out. Like, it's funny how it went from, the Heat really need a power forward, to now it's like, maybe they just need to get healthy.
Caleb Martin's a perfectly capable starter in this league. Like, the idea that the Heat are missing PJ Tucker, and that's the big problem, or they need to go out there and get Jay Crowder, miss me with both of those. Caleb Martin is a perfectly fine player.
I agree. I do think, though, they're going to need to rebound a lot better if they're going to go with Caleb as their starting 4-man. And yeah, I think defensively, I don't know if they figured something out with that zone, but if that zone doesn't work out, I think Caleb could be a problem in there, just because he's not bulky enough. Like, I think offensive players see the lanes a lot easier and how to get to the rim. And, there's going to be a lot more block calls than charge calls. And so I think they're probably going to need some sort of girth in there if they want to pick that up, but not to replace Caleb, just to add to the rotation. Who knows if Omer ever comes back? I don't know if that ankle thing is, and he might, but that's the most frustrating injury, when you've got a guy who you've just set up, you worked with, you built up to this, perfect situation, and let's see if it works. Damn it! Now I have to wait 2 months, 3 months because of this injury, and apparently you have no idea what it is.
They were going to play Bam and Omer together too.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see it. But now, assuming he comes back and works his way into shape, blah blah blah, like, you're probably talking about what, February before you can even see what that looks like, and then you're in the fight at that point. You're probably fighting for positioning at that point. So it's unfortunate, and I don't think that they should panic and try to make a trade, but it's good to see Caleb, doing his thing. It's good to see Bam aggressive, especially in the fourth quarters. And so I don't know, if Tyler gets his shot back, is he is all of a sudden triple-double threat, not just a scoring threat. And so I think
maybe Kyle Lowry not completely washed.
It was such a waste, man. The triple-double game, up 5 with a minute left, and they lose that with Kyle Kuzma hitting
who was 1 of 10 at that point.
He was 1 of 12 at that point and finished 2 of 13. Unbelievable. I don't understand it. And I don't know if you noticed this. On that three-pointer that Kuzma hit, Brad Beal, he no-looked that son of a bitch. He actually turned around. I was like, how? Dude, 1 for 12. How do you have that confidence? And so, yeah, that one was – but, yeah, Kyle's been great. And I think, I don't think he has a full season of this, but I think for 6-7 game spurts, this could be your guy. And you know how long playoff series last. 6-7 game spurts. So hopefully he'll be a lot better in the playoffs than he was last season.
Good job, Israel. You got anything that we could promote for everyone listening to ZASLOW Show 2.0?
CJ McCollum Show podcast released what's today? Wednesday. Releases tomorrow. It was a fun one. It's just me and CJ this week.
Are you the permanent co-host now?
I am the co-host. Yeah, maybe one day it'll be the CJ McCollum Show with Izzy Gutierrez, but right now it's just the CJ MCollum Show.
Have I told you years ago I was in the running for that? I was asked about doing it with CJ. Yeah.
Really?
Huh. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Well, now I'm doing it. So always connected, you and me.
Cool, man. Great job. I appreciate you hanging out with us for so long this morning. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure.